My name is Chris Wharton, and I'm an associate professor in the nutrition program at Arizona State University. And I'm extremely excited to have Jean-Martin Fortier here to offer this incredible workshop on profitable small-scale farming. This is a collaboration that's been months in the making with a lot of organizations, and I want to just call some of them out now. So Kelly Young, for example, at U of A Cooperative Extension, helped put this on, along with Steadfast Farms and Eric Schultz. And a number of other folks are contributing to this event. So I just want to make mention of one of the other organizations involved in this workshop. It's called the Food Systems Transformation Initiative. And so this is a new organization at ASU. It's one that I direct. And it's really focused on broadly equitable participation in the food system. And that means we really care about food security and people's ability to have access to healthy, oftentimes locally produced, culturally appropriate, affordable food. But it's also about ensuring that people can have livelihoods in the food system. And so this event is really an important piece of that. We really care about having an integrated and diverse food system and allowing people to have the opportunity to be producers and participate in the food system from that perspective as well.
Okay, which brings me down to this, transplanting. Transplanting, there's a lot of advantage to it. Getting a head start on weeds is one, but also that's how I get to have 2 or 3 crops a year on a bed, considering that I can start some of the crops inside the greenhouse. So let's say I have a bed that is filled with radishes, and then I harvested clean. The same day, boom, I'm transplanting lettuces, and these lettuces have been started 3 weeks earlier. So I just gained like 3 weeks in my growing season. And then I'm sure to have optimal densities because I'm putting them where I want them. So I don't have any germinating failures in the field. So we're transplanting as many of the crops as possible. Beets, spinach, transplanted. Okay? And we use a calendar to time all of this, and I'll talk about that later this afternoon. So since we're starting a lot of our starts, we've got to become, quite, I wouldn't say experts, but good enough to have, seedlings coming out of the nursery every week throughout the season, more or less. So first thing, we use trays, cell flats. They're much faster than others, styrofoams, coconut, or soil blocks. These take forevers. This is the most efficient way to do seedlings. And so that's my blonde in her office. Okay, so that's a chart that people need to understand. If you're growing all of these crops, you'll have different number of cells. Okay, so all of the cells flat, they're always the same size. I think it's 10 by 20, if I remember correctly, okay? And so we use the 128 and the 72s, meaning you'll have 128 small plugs, or in the same flat, you'll have 72 bigger plugs. So each of these vegetables, they require to be a certain amount a day in a specific cell plug. So rutabagas, they need to be, if they're planted in 72s, they need to stay for 30 days. And this is something that you need to follow. Because if you remove them too earlier, the roots won't have time to bind, and then the plug is going to fall apart. If they stay longer than that, then the root they're going to turn and turn and turn, and then the plant becomes less productive later on. Yes? Pardon me? Yes. Okay? This is from seed to when it's done. So these are for these intensive spacing. So this is something that you don't invent, but now that you have the market gardener, there's a pretty valuable number here, which is the number of cell trays you need per 100-foot bed. So let's say you're planting 100 foot of turnips, or not turnips, but beets. Now, we've calculated many years ago that for beets, where are you beets? They're not there. Okay. So you need to have 11 flats. Okay, so that, I was talking about the permanent bed being a unit of measure. That's one good example. We've calculated this once, and we've been using these charts ever since. Okay?
Is that in the book?
Yep, everything's in the book. I wouldn't know that by heart.
Does that assume 100%?
No. It assumes that you have 30% more than what you'll need, which is a good safety factor. By the way, we never calculate safety factors in the fields. Most organic growers, they'll plant 30% more because they won't have time to supervise well, so they're thinking, I'll have crop failure, germinating failure, I'll have insect problems, I'll have problems. And so they want to have more so that they can get what they want. But I think that's a bad strategy because you plant 30% more, it's 30% more time to cultivate, 30% more row covers that you need. So you're better off to do less and focus on having 100% yield as much as possible. Okay? So this is a picture of our nursery. It also is where we do all of our early tomato plants. So we do both in the same space. And we start the tomato plants in our house. Nothing fancy here. These are shop lights that we buy at Home Depot. Warm white, cool white, good enough. You know, I'm not very proud of this setup because it's not the most beautiful one, but it works. So these are all the grafted tomato plants. Did you guys get what grafting was? So when we graft, we take two plants. One plant has a root system that is really well developed and really strong, and it's not susceptible to certain soil-borne diseases. And then you have another plant which gives you the fruit that you want. And then you grow them, and when they're about that size, you cut both of them, and then you take the top of one and the feet of the other, and then you fuse them together with a clip, and then you keep them at 100% humidity for a week. And then the two plants will become one plant, giving you the best of both worlds. Good root systems and the fruits that you want. So that's how we get around not having a crop rotation inside our greenhouse. Okay, so this is our quick picture of our setup, just to show that it's nothing fancy. We have a broiler, we have an auxiliary one. The water is kept at temperature because we don't want to water with cold water. So this is painted black. Also, it doesn't allow for, that's not supposed to happen. So funny. Okay, so that's how you avoid having algae in your water, is to paint it black. Jacuzzi pump with an expansion tank, so it allows you to water continuously. This is a generator that is fixed on the BCS, so if there's a power shortage, we can still have the furnace running. And this is a picture of Modèle, the person in charge of watering the seedlings. This is a critical part of the process because you need to be able to water just the right amount. If you water too much, you'll get diseases, and if you water not enough, the plants might die. So it really is all about being present and monitoring things. And the person in charge knows to put the 128 together because they require the same amount of water, and the 72s on another table. She knows that it's warmer by the ends or near the furnace or the boiler. So it's a lot of just being present. So we have one person in charge of that, and so that's another way not to think that, oh yeah, he probably did it, and this other person thinks he did it, and then nobody's doing it, and then you come back the next day and the plants are dead. So you have one person doing it. This is just a quick way. You have these hoses. This is sold by Johnny's Seeds. It's just a great way to not have the hose always in your feet. It's strapped above, and then you can go there's hooks here on a rail. That's a great little thing here. So, yeah. We have an alarm that tells us if the temperatures are below a certain point or above. No. It's just us. And when you try to automate something like that and you have, 30 different crops, it's tricky. So I think you'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to automate things. And then all of this time could have just be spent managing it yourself. On a small operation, sometimes you need to have low-tech solutions to make it worthwhile. You'll find this in the Johnny's catalog. So, soil mix, we buy it. 1 year, I measured all of the ingredients that I was purchasing, and it costed me more money than buy it already made. So we buy it like that in bulk, and that saves us a lot of work. Okay? Again, if you do this, try to buy the better one out there. It's a worthwhile investment. We also do a plant sale. Is that how you say that? So we produce about 30% more than what we need. And then for 2 weekends, we invite everyone down to the farm for them to purchase their seedlings. We make about $10,000 in these 2 weekends. And it's a little bit more work, but it's not more complicated. And so because now people are buying them at Walmart, because all the nurseries are closing down. So all the home gardeners now, they come to our farm, and then they get tricks from us, and we talk to them, and they have cultivars that are interesting. So that's a great way to finance some of the investments that you're going to put in your nursery. This is a vacuum seeder. Okay? Remember earlier we talked about doing 12 flat of beets per 100-foot bed. Let's say I'm seeding 6 beds of beets. That's a lot of cell flats to put. And if you're going 1 beet at a time, it's going to take a while. So this device is pretty handy. It's a box that is empty with air, and it has a top with holes in it. Okay? Holes are made like that. And so you drop your seeds, and then you wiggle it, and then you start the vacuum. And then it's going to suck the seed into place. You flip it upside down, okay? And then you shut off the vacuum seeder, and then all the seeds will fall onto in the middle of all the cells. So that's a great way to save a lot of time in the nursery. Okay? Everybody got that? I don't hear a lot of, this is great. Yes? For seeds? Oh, it's a local thing. Yeah. Now, I would try to buy something that's not coming from Vermont. Is this ridiculous? Potting mix can be good wherever. Any other questions? These are heating tables. Okay? That's how we do our early starts in the greenhouse. And so what it is, it's a table, and it has some heating cables onto a foam. And then we put sand over it. And then there's a thermostat here. And what you do is that you put the sensor inside your soil mix. Set this to, 65. You read on the seed package, optimal germination, 65. you set it to 65, and then the table is going to heat itself all the way till this is at the optimal temperature. So instead of heating the whole space, you just heat your soil. And once the seed have germinated, then you're good to go. Okay? So that's a really cheap way to do some of the seedlings earlier on. Perhaps here you don't have that problem. I'm not really aware. But perhaps you need to cool down. It would be a cooling table. I don't know how that would work, but I'm sorry, my presentation is not really tailor-made for the reverse of what I do. And I'm going to Australia. It's going to be also something that I might need to plan. But, it gives you an idea of what we do. These are another prototype of tables that we're working on now because we had a lot of seedlings that we need to cover for insect problems. So I was looking for a solution because when you cover them, then you can't water them. So we have these plastic pipes, and they have a little irrigation sprinkler on it, and then you can cover them and just turn on the pipe, and then you can water inside the table and still have it covered. Okay? Little tricks, but if you're saving time here and there, at the end of the day, you might have time to go for a bike ride with your kids. So. Before the plants are ready to be moved out to the garden, you need to harden them off. I think it's the same here. So they'll spend at least a week outside, get accustomed to the wind and to the changing temperatures. So we have like this little hoop house that is quickly built, and if needs be, we can cover it with the plastic if it's really cold. So you guys need to harden off your transplants too, correct? One thing I know for a fact is that the plants, let's say they're in their optimal growing environment and there's no stress. So they get water when they want, they don't have wind, and they have the right temperature. So they're fragile because they're not hardy. And if you go from that state to the outside world where perhaps they get sunburned, or I don't know, they're going to spend a lot of time recuperating from that. It can go up to 3 weeks before you have the cycle kick in again. So this transition is important.